So this is Urdizzle back with what everybody has been requesting for the last month or so, and that's a walkthrough of Kaho Park. And I'd been holding off a little on doing this because the updates were coming fast and furious, and I didn't want to do a walkthrough and then have the physics completely revamped. So 998 seems like it's settled down quite a bit, so I thought this would be as good a time as any to do a walkthrough. And so the 9 discs I'll be using for this walkthrough are my standard 9. So my fuse, compass, and river, all accurate windbreak. And then the middle row, we've got an accurate windbreak musket, the accurate glide musket, which has been recently added to the bag, and I enjoy that one. The wind glide recoil, and then the 3 ballistas, the light glide, the skip glide, and the wind glide. So all 3 solid discs. And so instead of playing through rounds, I decided to use one of the features in the new update, and that's the practice round. So it'll allow me to kind of go through each hole and play it multiple times. And we start with hole 1, which is a fantastic hole, 495 feet downhill, and I definitely prefer the forehand on this. And so what I had thrown in an earlier update was the forehand light glide ballista. And you'll notice right there that the light glide ballista is throwing a little shorter than it did in previous updates. And I think they made it a little bit heavier, so it's a little more overstable. And it doesn't quite do what I had expected it to do from previous updates. So that one, even though I was able to get the birdie, it was a little further right than I was hoping for. And so on this one, I tried it again, but this time I put a little turn on it, and I was able to get the shape better. I just think the forehand moves away from the sand trap very well, so it's a preferable shot. And so most of these I'll just play it out and finish and show you that there's a lot of different discs you can use on this. And so depending on the wind, though, you might have to change your approach. So for example, here I have a 2 headwind, or excuse me, a 2 tailwind, and you can actually use a musket here. So I'm going to use my accurate glide musket and put a little turn on it, and it is enough disc even with just a 2 wind to get it there. So kind of goes to show you don't have to go ballista or recoil or havoc or whatever you're throwing. A driver is not necessary. Sometimes you can just throw a fairway driver and it gets you there. Other times, depending on the wind, you might have to change a little bit. So here we have a left to right wind of 4. I actually like throwing a recoil on this because the recoil is a little more overstable there, so it'll come back for me. So I do it with a little turn, and it just glides down there nicely. So lots and lots of options on this. I don't really prefer the backhand when I have a choice, but really no poor options unless you go for too much disc. All right, hole 2. This is the one everybody's been messing with. So I'm going to show you some of the traditional lines that people take. So right here we have a left-right wind of 4. So I really like the forehand because it kind of shapes to the hole. And depending on how close you cut it. So right there I was able to get it down there, but it hit a rock and went OB. You just got to be careful where your aim is and how close you want to cut the corner. So I threw the light glide there, which is not my preferred disc. I actually like the skip disc because then you can get skips like that, and you are around the corner past the sand trap, and you are in easy eagle range. And this is a tricky hole to run from this range, though, because the pin is sitting up on a little hill there. And if you miss, it slides right by it. And so you're going to give yourself 60, 70, 80-foot comebacks all the time. Especially with the under 4, I kind of threw quickly there, so I missed it. But depending on how aggressive you want to be, you can run those. And it is, from where I was on that drive, it is downhill a little bit, so you got to be a little careful with the disc choice. And so now, again, I'll show you can use the skip, so the glide skip disc. And if you play it on the right angle, it'll just, it's just a fantastic disc to skip right up over the top of that. The only drawback is sometimes you bring those rocks into play, and that worked out nicely, but that is a really risky play. So here it is 274 feet into a headwind. You could throw a river, a fuse, or explorer, or whatever you got in the bag that's not too much disc. And again, if you play it correctly, it should be a pretty easy eagle. But let's be honest, none of you want to see the standard traditional line. You guys all want to see the albatross line. And so there are a couple ways that you can attack this going for the albatross. And before the 998 update, I would actually throw a light skipped ballista right about here. There's a little bush, those 2 trees right there, but it's just that shot is not there anymore. And so I aim a little further. These 2 trees, so you got the big tree there and the big tree there. You can actually aim right in the middle of it. And this is, again, it's a risk reward. So right there, that was just not a good shot. You want to put a little turn on it. And I was able to make it through all this junk and get down there to give myself at least a shot at an albatross. And so 127, I'll mess around here and throw a forehand. And you never know if it's going to go in. And all right, there we go. So, but again, if I miss that, I'm 120 feet past the pin. And so if you're really going to go for this, you have to aim somewhere. And there's no clear path. I mean, I aim at this little tree here, but then every now and then I hit that tree. And there's just, I think up to the right here, it kind of opens up a little bit. But you just have to be careful because if you get too far to the right, the disc just doesn't have enough momentum to skip down the hill. And so if I can get it just to the left of that tree I just missed, see right there? So that was a good shot. But again, I threw it too far right, so it just didn't quite have enough juice to get down back in bounds. So ideally, when I throw it, if I can get it just inside that particular tree, I'm good. But then here, so we've got a wind of 3. If the wind is a 3 or a 4, right to left, I don't want to say there's no chance because I've actually got it through there, but that is such a difficult shot that it just makes so much more sense to play it down here and hopefully leave it short of that sand trap right there so you don't get the extra stroke and just take your eagle. I mean, if it's hole 9 and you're behind 2 strokes and you really want to put the pressure on, I suppose you could go for that, but I've had very little luck consistently getting through on that line when it's a wind of 3 or 4. So let's see what we got. So again, wind of 4, there's just no easy way to do that. So I would much rather throw this, and even that's a little tight. And so I still got it down there, and I'm probably 400 feet away. So normally what I do is I would throw a forehand out to the left, but we're going to mess around with and throw a recoil out to the right. And so with the 4 headwind, that's going to push it way over. Yeah, see, that was just a bad shot. And so you can throw that second shot kind of hyzer out to the right. You just got to be careful when there's a strong wind. It'll never come back. And there you go. So that's the challenges you have in running this. You leave yourself 60, 70, 80 feet coming back. And in a 4 wind, I was able to hit that, but that's not the shot you want to be throwing for birdie. So lots of options there, easy eagles. Hole 3 is a pretty challenging hole because of those sand traps. So it's not anything you're probably going to get a 5 or a 6 on. But what I like to do is I like to throw a ballista right into there. So a wind glide ballista so I can kind of minimize the effect of the wind. But I found that if you throw it kind of into the side of the hill, it'll usually slow it down a little bit, or even jam it into the sand trap, and the sand trap will slow it down, but the disc will still kind of slide up where you need it to be. So you could also throw a musket like I did right here, and I just left it in there. The problem with that is you have to really make sure that your aim is precise, because that little gap between the 2 sand traps can be a little difficult to hit if the wind is a 3 or a 4. So look, right here the wind is 1, so if I go accurate glide musket here, that's a pretty easy line to hit. I mean, that's standard. I mean, that's a simple birdie. But once that wind starts picking up and you start bringing in those sand traps a little more, this hole becomes much more difficult. And so my preferred line is to throw this one right here. So the wind glide ballista, slam it into the sand trap, let it pop up there. And the worst you have is, 60, 70 feet, which if the wind is low should be easy, but pretty standard stuff. Another option you can do, which I've done before, but it's not really preferred, is you can play kind of a high stall line. So we got a 4 headwind, so this is probably not the best shot, but you can play a light glide ballista and just throw it way up in the air and let it slam down. But I mean, that was lucky. That didn't even get to the sand traps. And so with a 4 wind, a little challenging, but I think the high stall shot is a little more risky because if the wind gets a hold of it, it can push it way left and out of bounds. So that one should most definitely be a birdie every time. So this hole is arguably everybody's least favorite hole. And so right over in this left area is where you want to land your disc. The problem is, depending on the wind, it is really difficult to get it there. And so I really like the glide skip disc in most winds, except here I'm going to throw the wind glide. Because the skip disc, I mean, if you don't put enough turn on it, it'll easily skip OB left. And this is a stroke and distance hole. If it goes OB, you are right back to the tee. And so right here, I'm a very reasonable distance normally, but 409 is just such a hard, like this far back. If you can get it inside 300, you're good, but 400 feet, you are just, I don't want to say you're guessing, but it's such a difficult shot to get in that area and get it to stick. And so here I'm almost forced to throw my light glide just because I wanted to go higher and kind of slam down. And so that one just barely got over the top. And this is such a hard hole to get a birdie on. I would venture a guess to say that those that are trying to get 3 stars on this course, this is the hole that messes them up every single time. All right, so here we've got the same wind of 3, and I'll show you what happens if you go glide skip. And so that one I put a little turn, but not enough, and that is way out of bounds. Yep. And so here's the drawback to getting aggressive, and you want to be hyper aggressive, but now it's stroke and distance, so you got to go all the way back to the tee and redo it. So now I got to aim further to the right, and right about there's a little valley to the right, and so sometimes your disc gets caught up in that and it does not like to skip. But if you can get up to this range right here, this is ideal. So 240, I'm going to throw the river, and the river might even be a little too much disc, which, slow down, is not. And so I'm just going to show you here. I'm going to rethrow. At 240, you can probably throw your fuse. The fuse will probably be a perfect shot. Yeah, and being a mid-range, it'll just settle up there nicely. So the challenge on this, yes, the second shot is hard, but that first shot is everything. If you throw a bad drive, or maybe you don't even have a ballista, you've only got a havoc or a recoil, it's really, really hard to get up in there. And so right here, this is also an extremely difficult wind, a wind of 4. Like, I don't want to say I would never say that there's no way you can get a birdie, but a wind of 4 on this is so insanely difficult to get a birdie on. Because even if you play it, you're 403, and now, like, I'm going to show you the different drivers here. That's my glide skip. That's not even close. Like, this is, I know it's deceptive, but that is uphill. So you are uphill 400 feet into a headwind of 4. There is not a disc in this game that you can consistently get up there with. You could probably switch over to a glide wind recoil, or glide wind ballista, but even that is just probably not going to get up there. So the best play is just to lay it up short. And right before that OB line, it does slope up. So even if you're coming in a little hot on that, it'll kind of slow it down a little bit. And that's one of those where you just kind of have to take your medicine. And if you don't get a good drive, don't be an idiot. Just lay it up, take your par, and head out. So let's see if we can get a favorable wind. So another option here, so if you have a right to left wind, is I will sometimes throw a skip disc that's forehand. And so if you play the forehand out over the OB, which can be a little risky, and then it skips up over this, you're now in prime position to give yourself a good shot at birdie. So 529. So I'm 324 feet here. I'm going to throw a forehand musket, and that might not get there. Yeah. And so one of the things I wanted to show you, though, is the ground moves up, but you can almost skip it off like a ramp off that wall. And so if I do it right here, skip it up off there, and sometimes it'll actually come back over the wall OB, but there's times where you can leave it short and kind of skip it up there. I've seen people do rollers, but I'm not messing with a roller. That's just not something I want to do. So here, wind of 2, this is perfect. So this is set up ideally. Throw your skip disc. You know it's not going to skip left. I mean, that is prime position right by that little bush. And so if you don't get birdie from this range, you suck. It's 270. For me, it's a river. For some of you, it's an explorer. And that one, oh geez, I almost didn't get it over the wall. Kind of talked myself into a par there. But anyway, so that's the strategy, is try to get it as far up and left as you can. And if you don't have a ballista, you might have to just suck it up and take your pars. If there was ever a must-get birdie on this course, this is it. So hole 5 is it's the easiest hole on the course. I throw an accurate windbreak musket, and that one, I still don't birdie this every time though, because sometimes I get caught in those bushes. But usually what I will do is I'll show you on the next one here. I'll aim a little lower, and I'll slide my stance out to the right a little bit, and then I put a little bit of turn. I just wanted to kind of turn nicely through there, and even that's coming in a little hot. And so the ground usually eats that up. Sometimes you hit the little stump there, there's a rock, But 59 feet, you can still putt that. Anything out to about 64, 65, you could reasonably putt it. But I'm going to see if I can get one that's hidden in the bushes, because sometimes when you do this, it goes a little bit too far and slides behind those bushes, and you might have to throw through it or putt through it. Yeah, that one's coming in a little hot too. Okay, so right here. So now you're in the bushes, depending on when it is. So I'm going to try to putt this one since it's 41 feet, and I know it'll slow it down. But I was still able to punch through that. Some of those bushes, though, we'll do it again to see if I can get it where I have to throw through it. And sometimes when you throw through it, it just slams it down and you end up missing it. So here I try to throw a river just to show you that if you disc down, the problem with throwing the river is to get it to clear that water, you kind of have to throw it a little higher. And if you throw it higher, you're bringing in some of those branches on those trees. So it may work. I don't know if that's probably the best option. And then if you really get funky here, you can always do this with your light glide ballista and aim way to the right and just say, you know what, screw all the trees, I'm going to go this route. And just, if you get the aim right, you get something like that. Now, would I do that in a multiplayer or pro tour match? Probably not, but it's kind of fun to mess around with. Maybe somebody will post a video of a skip ace on that one. This hole 6 is another one of my favorites. I love this. If you've watched any of the European Open, this is one, some of the pro players go over there. This is a fantastic hole, and I think it's modeled after that. And so the traditional line here is just to throw the forehand, leave yourself hopefully a little bit closer than this. Now, the problem is if you're out in this range and you want to run it, you can easily run this, but man, it's so easy that if you miss, just skip right over that wall. Whether it's like off the basket and over the wall or into the wall and it slides up over the top, you really got to get yourself close enough that you can almost guarantee that you can hit metal. And so that's a little more challenging to do. And so now I've got a wind of 3 here left to right, and I'll show you the daily tournament from yesterday, which was October 20th, 21st. We had a really, really favorable wind, and there was a nice route you could take. That was bad. But there was a route you could take wide right, and the wind would just push it, push it, push it, push it. I actually saw somebody post a video where they had a skip ace on it. And it's there, it's doable, but this is one of those, if it's early in a daily tournament, go for it. If you're messing around, go for it. But man, if you're actually trying for score in a multiplayer or pro tour, this is the route. Play it out to the left. Get yourself a skip disc, whatever skip disc you use. Get yourself out here, and ideally you get close enough for a throw in. Which I'm gonna go ahead and run this from 185. This is one of those where it's either gonna hit metal, go in, or gonna go like, oh wow, that was way off. So that actually was, I hit metal, but skipped long. And so let's try that again, just to test it out. Yeah. And so there I hit the wall, but sometimes if you hit the ground, it'll slide up, hit the wall, and pop up over. I've had all sorts of crazy stuff happen with those. So we'll try it a couple more times just to show you. All right, so here's the wind. So wind of 4. If you get a wind of 4, get yourself like a light glide disc, play it through this gap right here, and the wind will just push it, push it, push it. Now, what it does when it clears it's a coin flip. Like, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, and that one almost goes out of bounds. And so you're here 136, but you're still in a situation where you've got to throw it in. You know, are you willing now with a 4 wind to really run it? And see, that's what can happen. You get a wind of 4, and those throw-ins are just so much more difficult. So risk it if you want to, but for my money, if I've got a situation like that, depending on the wind, I'm just playing the forehand out to the left, skipping it up there, and hope I get some reasonable shot on that. So let's see what we got now. A little rain. So wind of 4. Now, I want to show you this. You got to be careful, though. This one, you got to worry about it going wide left, which, oh yeah, that's going to be way wide. Because that wind of 4 is just really, really, really pushing that disc out there. So you got to be careful if it's a wind of 4 or wind of 5, where you aim and how far left you go. And so that's one where you going to have to settle for the par, unfortunately. But so lots of options depending on the wind, risk versus reward, and that's what a good par 4 gives you. It's risk reward. So the par 5, I have mixed feelings about this one. I love the tee shot. So right here with the wind of 4, there's OB along the left, so you got to be really careful. I love using my skip disc, but with a wind of 4 right to left, I'm going to use my wind glide just to kind of minimize some of the effects of the wind. Now the second shot, no matter where you are, they have that hazard sand trap. I will always try to play it out to the right. So here I'm going to play it out to the right, and that's not even as far over as I wanted to, but look what that wind of 4 does. It just powers it right through the sand trap. So if you're able to clear that sand trap, it's, even if it's not a putt, like that was a 43-foot putt, you usually get a very reasonable throw in. But depending on the wind, I don't like the second half of that hole. I think it's just kind of boring. Like this first one, you kind of have to choose a line. So now I'm going to switch to my skip disc. And this is the ideal line, unless there's a big crazy tailwind, is just throw it up here. And then on your second shot, aim it a little out to the right. Maybe even a little further than this, but I'll try it. And just hope you get a nice skip. And the reason I like aiming to the right is, oh, that's good. Oh, no! I can't believe that rolled into the hazard there. And so now I've got a tricky shot for birdie, but I'm pretty good at those. But ideally, if you miss short, if you're far enough right, you're not in the hazard, and you'll still give yourself a 70, 80, 110-foot throw-in opportunity for eagle. Another option here is you can throw forehand, which, similar to the hole 4, you kind of bring that OB into play. That's pretty dangerous. But what I like about this hole, so again, I don't like the second half of the hole. I just think it's boring. But one of the things I do like is if you get it long of the hole, that's in the sand trap too. Yeah, it kind of angles uphill. So if you need to run it from 110, 120, you've got a nice backdrop there where you're probably not going to give yourself too long a shot coming back. So again, first shot, great. Rest of it, all right. So wind of 2 here. I'd probably, if I was really doing this, I'd probably throw the wind glide, but I'm going to go ahead with the skip disc again. And I'd really like to get it up there. And that was a bad skip. That's just bad luck. And so I'm going to try to aim this a little further. Maybe I probably need to aim that even further out to the right. And just here, I hope it skips. Now, see, that one should have skipped over the sand trap. That was just really bad luck. But honestly, if you're here 48 feet, if I can get a shot out of the sand trap for birdie from 48, I'm actually okay with that. And this hole. Winthrop hole 17. So second to last hole, just like it is there. So I want to show you guys the difficulty here. If you aim low, like this one, I would never aim low like that normally. What I want to show you is, now that one didn't clear the wall, but the problem with aiming low is, even if you clear the wall, there's no chance that that's not going to skip into the water. It's just, there's no chance unless you hit metal. And so what I'd like to do is aim a little higher, and even this is probably not high enough, is to just get it high enough and kind of play a stall shot. And see, when it comes in hot like that, that's way too fast. And so if there was ever a hole in this game where I may consider throwing an Explorer in the bag, it would probably be this one, just because there's so many options that are just not good. High, low. Ideally, that's what you want to do. You kind of want to throw that high stall shot and let it just fade out to the right and give yourself a 60, 50, 80-foot throw in. Like if you're trying to get it right by the pin, I think that's a rookie mistake. Like just get it on the island and do what you need to do. And so even here, like if I try to throw it with a wind, that's probably not going to make it. Yeah, see, so the wind really comes into play and kind of makes your shots come up short. And so I'll try that one again, but again, I'm not very confident that this is going to clear it. Yeah, see, that's too much hyzer on it. And so if you're really trying right now, I'm trying to get within 50 feet. And I want to show you how this is just not a smart play. So I'm going to try this over and over until I get it. And so now I got it in there, but that's coming in way too hot. And so I'm going to have to aim a little higher. But this is the battle you have, is you want to aim it low enough that it has the distance, but also high enough that it's not going to hit the ground and just skip right into the water. That one's decent. See, even that one was a good shot, and it just skipped way, way, way too long. And so this is probably the hole that really tests your mental fortitude and your ability to have throw-ins. So right now, you can skip it up off the wall. That's not working. Is where do you aim to get it in there and give yourself a reasonable shot at it? And so I'm going to keep trying this, even though I know these are not good shots, and these are not shots that I would normally try. And so that one, landed just like the one a couple shots ago, but it happened to stick. And so what are the other options to get it to stick there? Well, one of the ways you can do it is pick a disc like a fuse and just throw it low. So I'm going to go forehand, and this is probably going to be too short, but you throw it low and hard and try to skip it up off the wall, like use the wall as a ramp. Now, this is a risky play, but it's an option. So let me switch to backhand here. But if you hit it, see, that's going to hit a little short. Yeah, see, that just didn't have enough juice. And so you might have to disc up, but maybe this is your way of getting around the strong winds. Maybe there's a wind of 4 and you just can't get it up over there. And so that one also doesn't have enough juice. So maybe I disc up to a river. So let's try to slam the river into it and see what happens. So the whole point is you want to hit it a little short, and that one might have a chance of skipping up over. Boom, and there you go. So very risky, but that's an option, is just to slam it in there and do that. But now let me show you what I would do if this was the hole. If this was a tournament and I'm like, I need a birdie, I'm not aiming at the basket, I'm not playing a skip shot, I'm doing this. I'm going to take the river and I'm going to aim it to the wide part of the green. And this is just common sense golf. Don't try to get it anywhere near the basket. Just get it on the fat part of the green and give yourself an 80-footer, 90-footer, and see what you can do with it. And if you're proficient with your throw-ins, that should be a birdie. So that last play is the smart play. Just try to get it on there and see if you can make a shot. So we'll have a little fun here now. Let's go occasionally with the wind. So wind of 2, I'm going to go ahead and throw the fuse. You might even be able to throw a backhand, just a simple mid-range backhand. And so that one came up a little short, but I think I've got a read on this one. I'm going to aim it a little lower and a little left, and I think this should clear the wall. I think with that wind of 2 is going to carry it over. And so there we go, barely. But that's an option too, if you got a favorable wind, is to play a mid-range and just get it up over the top. So I don't know about you guys, but I have had enough of hole 8. I think we need something different. So let's finish things off with hole 9, which again is another tricky hole. So wind of 4, I'm going to throw the recoil, but I can almost guarantee this is going to go hard left. Yeah, the wind of 4 is just so strong. I mean, it's just, you're almost a guarantee to miss the Mando unless you're able to hit it in just the right spot. So here I put a little bit of anhyzer on it, and even that, I mean, the wind blew it so hard it didn't even give it a chance to come out of it. Like, it had no time. And so the drop zone on this is unmakeable. And I say that in a way like, yes, I know you can make it, but that is not one you're going to make consistently. It's not like the drop zone on the crow's nest hole, or actually 2 of the crow's nest holes. It's just, it's not in range. It's not something you can consistently make. So here we've got a wind of 3. We're going to go recoil again. That one should be pretty good. Skips through. And so even if you get right here, you've got yourself an 83-footer, which I feel very confident in my throw-ins. And so one of the options you can do then, if there is a strong wind and you're worried about missing the Mando, is don't throw a ballista. Don't throw a recoil. Throw something else. Throw like this. Throw a musket. And even me throwing the musket, I almost missed the Mando there. But ideally, you can leave yourself short of it. And then worst case, you've got yourself a throw-in from 70, 80 feet right here, and boom. And again, if you're proficient at those, that should be at least a birdie attempt each time. Now, if you really want to have some fun with it, you could always go driver and just try to crank it. Or you could do something like this and throw, yeah, that was... You could throw a bad shot and completely miss the Mando. And so what I'm going to do here is show you that when you do the approach, just throw a forehand fuse, aim low, and you got yourself... I mean, you're going to get your bogey, but it could definitely be worse. And you could always disc down to something like an accurate windbreak musket and just say, you know what, I'm not even going to try to make the Mando. I'm just going to make sure that I don't miss it. And so you leave yourself short right here and then just say, all right, I'm going to bank on the fact that I can throw this in. And that's a tricky throw in. Yeah. And so I left that one a little short, but very reasonable. So now let's go ahead and do a playthrough and show you guys what a 3-star run of 23 will look like. So hole 1, I'm going to go with the Light Glide Ballista. And again, kind of like I did on my first shot in the walkthrough, I left it a little right. Still have some trees in the way, but 64 feet should be a pretty easy shot with a wind of 1, so I'm probably not going to miss that one. So start off with the birdie. Hole 2, we'll go ahead and go for the albatross and see what happens. So wind of 3, I'm actually more worried about this going long than I am going short or making it through. So that actually went way left of where I was going. So this will most likely get me down there, but not a great shot for Alba. Okay, that's actually not too bad. So I should have a run. Nah, 210. That's going to be pretty difficult. I'll go ahead and go with my forehand fuse and see if I can put it in. And that was actually pretty darn close. We'll take the easy eagle from 20 feet. And again, my goal here is just to show you a 23. I'm not trying for any crazy records. Hole 3, so this is one I'm going to use that ballista, but that wind of 4 is crazy. So I think I got that one a little too high. Yeah, that is going to go way to the side. So we're going to have some work on this one to get the birdie. Yeah, if I can put this one in, that'll be... Oh, yes. Wow. Not going to lie, that was not a shot I was expecting to make from that range and that wind. All right, hole 4, this is a perfect wind left to right, so I can play my skip disc and not really worry about it going OB, although that has a chance. No, that's going to be perfect right by that bush. And that is such an ideal location. Easy river shot. I might actually go musket and see if we can make this. So I'm going to play my musket and play it a little higher. We're going to try to throw this one in. See what happens. Oh, so close. So those, if you played a little higher, I wasn't really worried about it skipping too long. So you can only do that from inside 300. Anything longer and you're really risking it skipping long. So far so good. This one, I'm not going to try to get in the bushes like I did with the walkthrough. I'm going to play a little more turn, so it'll play out to the right, and that should be ideal. Yep. And the ground usually eats it up, but that went a little longer than I was hoping, but I think we should be able to throw it and power it through the bushes. Yeah, that's no problem. I was not wanting to putt that one because the bushes might have knocked it down. All right, this one, wind of 3, man, things are working out nice. Everything's coming up Millhouse. So we got turn there. Yeah, that should leave me a reasonable shot. That's even close enough where I can try to throw it in and not worry about it going long. I just got to be really, I'm a little tentative on this one. I don't want to go too much. Yeah. I kind of knew I needed to give it a little more, but I didn't want to risk it going OB. Again, I'm not trying to get a 20 or a 21 or anything crazy here. I just want to get the 23. Wind of 1. This is also a very reasonable wind, so I'm going to throw the skip disc. See if we can get a little bit of turn on it. Oh, no, that was a really bad shot. Well, eagle is out of play. I'm probably 700 plus. Yeah, 680. So my goal here is just to play it out. Oh, and I hit the bush too. No. This might not work. I'm going to have to come up with something good here on my third shot just to make sure I can still get my birdie. Let's play this way out wide. And this is the shot I was talking about. Play it wide right of the sand trap. Hopefully get a good skip out of it. Should be 60, 50. Yeah. And all right. Yeah, I made that hole a little more difficult than I needed to, but we still got the birdie out of it. And this one, normally I would play it wide right, but with the wind of 1, I feel pretty comfortable I can land this on there. The question is, what will it do when it hits? I mean, that's perfect if it does what it needs to do. Slow down. Yes. Excellent. All right. So we're going to go ahead and putt it from 54. So yeah, we're basically down to the last hole. Hopefully I get a reasonable wind on the triple Mando. Let's see what we got. Wind of 2, I think we got this. Play a little left with my recoil. That's money. That's going to be putt. Yes, all right. So there you go. So that is a 23 to get you your 3 stars. So if you're one of those players that does not have a ballista or a long driver, this would probably be pretty challenging for you. So hopefully you enjoyed the Kaho walkthrough, and good luck getting your 3 stars.